Okay, thank you, Sabrina. Thank Katia and Anna for the invitation to share what we have done and also connect with some of the researchers. I think the previous speaker made my job easier, Anjali. Thanks a lot. So, emotions measurement in farm animals from animal welfare perspective. So when we look at, for example, to be able to measure emotions, first we need to define emotions, but that's a problem because there is no consensus among what is emotion, what constitutes an emotion, at least for farm animals. Typically, when we look at the definitions, the definition origin comes from psychology. And then Paul Ekman, there are also people from animal welfare, animal physiology, animal behavior, neuroscientists. They have their own viewpoint of what is an emotion, at least for the animals. So sometimes it feels like it's an endless, fruitless debate in terms of creating a consensus. But for us, from the welfare perspective, we have to consider the feeling component. Is there a balance in the emotion? Because without the feeling, then we wouldn't be able to assess or quantify what is an emotion and how we can make use for creating solutions for animal welfare. So even Paul Ekmanian's emotions, he did not consider the certain parameters, which is in contradiction with York Panksepp's definition. So for example, sensory and homeostatic states, so pain, hunger, nausea, etc. Those were not considered in the definition of emotion and how it is indicated as part of the emotions. So it's a little bit vague in terms of coming to a consensus, deriving, putting a finger in this non-tangible way to be able to quantify, to be able to assess and measure emotions for animals. There is also a concept of phenotyping. How do we go about moment by moment data collection in terms of assessing the laterality, in terms of assessing the continuous, constant changing of affective states over a period of time to be able to understand what these animals goes through? So a number of instrumentation, multimodality, and other artificial intelligence comes in handy to be able to create a bit more holistic understanding of what it is. Resilience is another concept. What is the relationship between emotions to resilience, at least from the welfare perspective? So again, the emotions and resilience, I think, can go hand in hand because both seems to be non-tangible. There is also no consensus about resilience definition also among the researchers. But to put it, you can visualize an elastic rubber band. How does the capacity of the animal that enables the animal to stay healthy or respond minimally, and it can quickly recover in response to fluctuations, perturbances, or disturbances? So the capacity of the animal to accommodate and adapt to the external sources of disturbances, while when we look at the health, health basically refers to the intrinsic state of these animals. So how does it relate to the emotions of farm animals? Because we know that if a resilient, a playful behavior, adapted animal at the earlier stage can actually demonstrate much more stronger robustness, resilience at the later life when disturbances are being introduced. It also has a correlation to meat quality and also the actual life stages of these animals. So a quick example here, we can see a methodology we developed in terms of determining the potentials of the emotions from cows and pigs based on the facial features and also the ear postures and orbital tightening as well as the eye-white regioning. We also have collected some data recently in terms of the differences in the temperature at the lower base of the left and the right ears. Because of the pigs, those are directly connected to the brain. So there is a possibility to explore not only laterality, but also to understand, create the connection of neuroscience in better understanding the affective states of these animals. So there are many advantages, but the biggest challenge, unlike companion animals like cats and dogs, is the number, and of course, compared to primates and humans, the number of facial muscles is much less. So it's very difficult, or at least challenging, to be able to pinpoint how do we create those arbitrary units in terms of feeding to the algorithms to be able to pinpoint, to be able to measure what are the correlation with different affective states. So when we look at the literature review for the past 10 years, behavioral scientists, ethologists, and animal scientists, they have done a wide range of experiments in creating specific correlation to a variety of what we call as indicators of emotions, or indicators, positive, negative, and neutral affective state indicators based on the specific features. So we rely on that to be able to create a framework along with specific arbitrary units. Again, it's a little bit subjective based on the annotation and ethologist to be able to create the correlation to those emotional states. So we can see here when the eyes closed, ears upward, ears downward for specific animals. And also, what is the specific posture of the ears, whether it's forward, droopy, or erect, or asymmetrical or symmetrical? What are the permutations and combinations of these three? How much of the eye white regioning to the specific ear postures, along with the tightening of the muscles surrounding the snout region for the pigs and cows? So based on this, we were able to come up with a framework to be able to develop a methodology, a platform to be able to say something about whether it's in the positive state or neutral state or in the negative state. And also, because of it's a video image analysis is involved, we were able to assess the intensity. Can we be able to check, depending on the spatiotemporal analysis, how the particular affective states are changing? So we use a wide variety of deep learning algorithms, YOLO V3, V4, and faster RCNN convolutional neural network methods to determine how good it can be automated. Again, data is the biggest challenge. We had access to about 235 pigs and 210 dairy cows from 5 different farms. We collected a large range of videos and photos. Of course, photos were discarded, and based on the video analysis, we were able to say, hey, you know what, YOLO V4 has the potential to provide at least 81.6% accuracy in terms of telling the intensity and the specific affective state in that particular moment based on that context. Here is just an example. We can see how the intensity is slowly changing based on the changes in the ear posture and how the aggression display happens for the pig. And so is the case with the cows. Here, this pig seems to be neutral, although with the erect ear postures. And also, we were able to quantify the eye white regioning and the orbital tightening, as well as here we can see the droopy ear postures. So it's an ongoing study, but quantifying is one thing, and also determining the emotion based on the algorithm also needs a lot of validation with other related studies. So unimodal cannot provide specific accuracy in terms of valence. So there is a definitive need for a multimodal approach. There are many advantages. Typically, we would want the multimodal ways to be a non-invasive, because if you imagine walking into a farm and there are multiple cameras in the farm setup, animals, it is impossible to take photographs or videos of the clear faces of these animals. animals, we cannot restrict those animals, especially when we apply for a large scale industrial intensive farming scenario. So how do we make use of the existing technology to be able to non-invasively collect data that could be relevant for creating the automation processes? So to be able to produce high quality data with much less sensitivity to environmental disturbances, multimodal approaches are needed. Because of lack of consistency in terms of the definition of emotions, we have to take into account the heart rate, the different neurological, neurophysiological signals as well, dopamine, cortisol, lactate, the changes are in the respiration rate, as well as the variability in heart rate, along with activity, has to be pooled together to be able to make sense of coming up with a much more holistic understanding of emotions. So there are vocalization is one factor. For example, in chickens, we already know that the specific changes in the intensity of the vocalization indicates whether they are moving away in terms of the negative emotions or drawing towards the positive stimulus. So vocalization has not yet been fully studied, but that could potentially be a contributing factor along with the other data for activity and the changes in the composition of odor volatile metabolites that's been exhaled by the cows and pigs, in addition to the non-invasive biomarkers, to be able to pool the data to create a better holistic understanding of emotions. So here is just a framework. It's an ongoing study. We have been working with few animal behavioral scientists within our group, and also one industry, in terms of looking at how do we automatize the emotions in a non-invasive manner. What are the sensors that can be deployed on these cows and pigs? Because pigs are naturally curious. When you put a heart sensor, the Polaris-based heart sensor, or even a specific accelerometer, they chew them away. So it's impossible to collect data. But what are the alternate ways? Can we be able to incorporate thermal imaging along with the facial normal video camera to acquire facial information, in addition to other sensors, to be able to collect continuous streaming of data? What are the different ways these tests can be conducted? Judgment bias tests, cognition tests, and other related stimulus that can be induced, perhaps a social isolation, to be able to elicit, to be able to create those specific emotional affective states and then correlate. So much more need to be done, at least from the farm animal welfare perspective, in terms of determining and investigating the emotions. So laterality is a bigger challenge, very curious, and it's a fascinating area. I was so thrilled to see the past speaker, Anjali's, this direction of neck. But because here in pigs, I think we are at a very, very early stage in terms of understanding the laterality. There are a lot of room for doing research. There is also, every pig has their own personality. If you have a 10 pig, we are looking at doing experiments. So is the case with cows. How do we understand the inter-individual variations among these animals? Can we be able to label them? This is Lucy, this is Jimmy, this is James, based on the specific manifestation and the expression of the emotional state. Because for face alone cannot be an indice or provide the telltale signs of what exactly is happening in animals. For farm animal welfare perspective decision support system. Because of that, we have to take into account other parameters, other non-invasive physiological, behavioral, neurological indicators to be able to make a decision. So in terms of artificial intelligence, currently, I would say the challenge is most of these algorithms are data hungry, which means we really need a lot of, I would say, the volume and the veracity of the data significantly determines the quality of the output we are going to get based on the algorithms. It could be a Bayesian based or a Gaussian network, a convolutional neural network based algorithms. So the data volume is one of the bottleneck in terms of the deployment of artificial intelligence for real-time practical decision support system in quantifying and assessing emotion. I would like to end here by thanking my researchers, Dr. Ainange Reimert, Boskemp, and also Lisbeth Bullhughes, who are some of the experts in the animal physiology and animal behavioral area. These are some of the papers which got recently published. And I would like to thank you once again for the opportunity to share what we have done so far.
Thank you, Suresh, for this very great talk and all these important and very interesting insights into farm animal research. Again, we are a little bit late, so that's why I would ask the questions by Katja from the chat. She was asking, did you find, sorry, no, it's gone. Did you find more similarities or differences between cows and pigs' facial expressions? And does your system allow you to quantify this or gives you only the emotion label?
Yes, definitely there is a difference in terms of the types of for example, if you look at the aggressiveness, the ear posture is very erect and then slowly pointing to forward direction for pigs, but it's not the case in cows. The nasal temperature, especially the snout region, it's a little more, much more intense for the cows, but we can see more infrared variation temperature on the ear base for the pigs compared to the cows. But again, it's an ongoing study. Our data pool is very limited with just 200, 150 cows and pigs. I don't know how much confidence interval we could generalize. This is the case between these two species.
Okay, thank you a lot for the answer. Yeah, I think we should again shift more questions to the Discord channel. So if anybody else has another question, please feel free to ask Suresh and then he can answer in the channel.